Pine smoke and hot coffee hang in the air, and the fireplace ticks like a slow heartbeat. Listen up, brothers.
People think leaving the battlefield means the fight is over. Truth is, the safe zone is sometimes just a curtain. And silence? Silence can be worse than gunfire. Because the ghosts of the past don't need bullets. They only need 1 second of you letting your guard down.
That night in Pittsburgh, it was just a wet parking lot and a truck. Then the breach came. A fake tow warning slapped on the windshield. A man named Derek Shaw showed up right on cue, smile sweet, eyes cold. And Ranger, a 5-year-old black and tan German shepherd wearing a harness that reads, "Service dog, do not pet," froze like a protector who'd just caught the scent of something wrong. So let me ask you, when you're pinned to the wall, do you run or do you fight? Because seconds later, a sound came from the back of that tow truck. Not metal, not machinery. A weak, human knock. The kind that turns your blood cold. Sit down with me, brothers. Hold the line. Hear this through, and take the kind of survival lesson you don't get anywhere else. The yellow notice on the wind. Cold rain slid down the bridges of Pittsburgh like it had nowhere else to go. The streets shone under pale streetlights, and the river air tasted like metal and winter. Ethan Cole moved with the quiet economy of a man who hated wasting motion. 40 years old, tall and broad-shouldered, he carried his weight like a door that never fully closes. His left leg dragged just enough to be noticed if someone was watching for weakness. Most people were. He wore the same thing he wore almost every day. A red and black flannel shirt, sleeves rolled to the forearm, dark jeans, old leather boots that had learned every kind of weather. Over it all, a heavy, dark jacket, unzipped because he preferred to feel the air. He did not chase comfort. He only accepted it when it showed up on its own. Beside him walked Ranger. The German shepherd was 5, black and tan, big-chested, calm-eyed, and quiet in a way that made strangers uneasy. Ranger's black harness sat snug against his shoulders, the white letters sharp even in bad light. Service dog, do not pet. Ethan did not let people touch Ranger. Not because he feared people, because he trusted Ranger's focus more than he trusted anyone's intentions. The pharmacy sat on a corner where the sidewalk pitched downward toward the river. The entrance smelled like floor cleaner and warm plastic. Ethan kept his hood down, water beating in his beard, silver showing at both temples. He grabbed what he came for, paid without looking up, and left as quickly as he could. Outside, the rain had thickened. It was not a storm. It was the kind of rain that felt personal. Ethan crossed the lot toward his pickup truck, already thinking about the next 10 minutes. Drive home, feed Ranger, check the lock on the back door, ice his left knee. Try not to remember things he didn't need to remember. Then he saw it. A bright yellow paper slapped against his windshield under the wiper blade. It didn't look like a city ticket. It looked like something trying to pretend it was official. Ethan stopped 2 steps away. Ranger stopped too, body aligned with Ethan's leg as if measuring distance and angles. The dog's ears lifted. Not high, not alarmed, just attentive. Ethan read the notice without touching it. Private tow warning, it said in bold letters. Below that were smaller lines about unauthorized parking, immediate towing, and fees that doubled after removal. There was a phone number. There was a name of a company Ethan had never heard of. There was no city seal, no badge, no reason. Ethan exhaled through his nose, the way he did when something insulted his intelligence. He slid his hand toward the wiper. Ranger pressed his shoulder lightly against Ethan's shin. It was a small move, a silent one, but it landed like a message. Ethan paused. "Yeah," Ethan murmured, not to the rain.
I see it. Ranger did not look at the paper. Ranger looked past the truck, toward the street. Ethan's gaze followed. A tow truck rolled around the corner at the exact wrong moment, headlights flaring against wet pavement. It moved slowly, like it already owned the space. The wrecker stopped behind Ethan's pickup with a squeal of brakes that sounded deliberate. The driver stepped out. He was a white man in his late 30s, average height, average build, wearing a work jacket that had seen better days. His hair was cut short, but not clean. His face had sharp lines around his mouth, the kind that came from too much smiling without warmth. His eyes moved fast, too fast. He carried himself like someone who was always closing in on a deal. "Evening," the man called, voice bright as a coin. "That your truck?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He took one step back from his own door. Not fear, positioning. Ranger stood at Ethan's left side, chest forward. The harness lettering glinted. The man's eyes flicked to Ranger and then away. The brightness in his voice stayed, but something in his posture tightened. "Name's Derek," the man said, walking closer. He held up a clipboard like it was proof of authority. "Derek Shaw, you're parked in a tow zone. I already wrote the warning, but I gotta do my job. You can settle the fee now, and I won't haul it." Ethan stared at him for a quiet beat. Derek Shaw was practiced. He had the right words, the right speed, the right confident smile. But the details were wrong. The tone was too rehearsed. The truck had no clear city markings. The tow zone sign behind the pharmacy looked newer than everything around it, like it had been bolted up yesterday and never belonged. Ethan's limp was real. The red and black flannel was real. The dog was real. Derek's authority was not. "What fee?" Ethan asked. Derek's smile widened. "200 cash, or card if you're feeling fancy. If I hook up and pull out, it's 500. Then storage fees. You don't want that." Ethan felt something old shift in his chest. Not anger yet. Something closer to recognition. Predators didn't always look like wolves. Sometimes they looked like men with clipboards and fake signs. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, screen lighting his face. "I'll call the city," Ethan said. "Or the police. Either works." For the first time, Derek Shaw's smile faltered. He recovered fast, but the crack was there. "You can call whoever you want," Derek said, laughing too hard. "By the time they show up, your truck's already gone. I'm giving you a chance to handle it easy." Ranger made a low sound in his throat. Not a bark, not a growl. A warning. Derek noticed. His eyes narrowed, and he took one step closer, shoulders squaring. He raised his hand and knocked on Ethan's driver's side door. Hard. Too hard. It was a small act, but it carried a message. "I can touch what's yours. I can make noise. I can make you flinch." Ethan didn't flinch. Ranger shifted, placing his body just slightly between Derek and Ethan's leg. The dog's head angled down, eyes fixed on Derek's hands. Ethan watched Derek Shaw, and the rain running down the man's jacket looked like sweat. Ethan's thumb hovered over the call button. The lot felt narrower than it had a minute ago. The air felt heavier. The sound of rain turned into a curtain, hiding everything outside it. Ethan didn't need a weapon to feel the danger.
He had lived long enough to recognize the moment when a bad man decided whether to walk away or step forward. Derek Shaw leaned in as if he owned the night. Ranger went still, the way a door goes still right before it slams. Ethan's phone vibrated once in his palm, like it knew something was coming. And the yellow notice on the windshield flapped again, loud as a warning flag. The wrong kind of attention. The rain eased into a thin, needling mist. Streetlights reflected off black ice near the curb, and the cold carried the smell of river water and rusted steel. Ethan Cole stayed where he was, one hand loose at his side, the other holding his phone. The red and black flannel clung damply beneath his open jacket. He felt Ranger's weight close to his left leg, steady and deliberate, the black harness firm against the dog's shoulders. Service dog, do not pet, was still clearly visible, as if it were part of the warning system itself. Derek Shaw knocked on the truck again, softer this time, testing. His smile had thinned. The easy charm was slipping, replaced by irritation. "You don't need to make this complicated," Derek said. His voice dropped, losing its shine. "Cash. We both move on." Ethan looked at Derek's hands, long fingers, slight tremor. A man used to pressure, but not used to resistance. "I already told you," Ethan said. "I'm calling it in." Derek scoffed. "You do that." He took a step back, eyes scanning the lot as if checking for witnesses. That was when headlights swept across the far end of the pharmacy parking area. A small sedan pulled in, tires crunching over salt and slush. The engine cut. A woman stepped out, moving quickly, shoulders hunched against the cold. She was in her early 30s, slim, with tired posture and careful movements. Her dark hair was pulled into a loose ponytail that had begun to sag by the end of a long shift. She wore scrubs under a thin coat and sensible shoes. Everything about her suggested routine and responsibility. Her name was Mia Parker. She opened the back door of her car and leaned in. "Lily," she said gently, "grab your bag." A girl climbed out, small and bundled, maybe 9 years old. She wore a puffy jacket 2 sizes too big and a bright blue backpack that bounced against her shoulders. Her hair was neatly braided, but the braid had come loose at the end. She looked around the lot with open curiosity, then paused when she noticed the tow truck. Lily Parker had the kind of face that asked questions before her mouth did. Ranger's ears angled toward them. Not alarm. Awareness. Derek saw them too. Something in his expression shifted. It was subtle, but Ethan caught it. The predator recalibrating. Derek straightened his jacket and put the smile back on, smoother now. He stepped away from Ethan's truck and turned toward Mia. "Evening, ma'am," Derek called out, suddenly polite. "You might want to hold up a second." Mia froze halfway to the entrance. Her eyes narrowed, cautious. "Why?" "You're parked in a restricted zone," Derek said. "Tow enforcement. Just doing my rounds." Mia glanced at her car, then at the sign behind it. Confusion flickered across her face. "I'm just running in for 5 minutes," Mia said. "I do this every week." "I understand," Derek said, nodding sympathetically. "But rules are rules. I don't want to tow you." "That's expensive. We can sort it out." Lily stepped closer to her mother, fingers curling into the sleeve of Mia's coat. Lily's eyes drifted to Ranger. She read the words on the harness slowly, lips moving without sound. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. He took one step forward. "She's fine," Ethan said evenly. "There's no city tow here." Derek shot him a look. The smile slipped again. "Didn't ask you," Derek said. This doesn't involve you. Mia looked between them, tension rising. She was used to long hospital nights, not parking lot confrontations. Her shoulders drew in protectively. "What's going on?" Mia asked. "This guy's trying to shake people down," Ethan said. "You don't owe him anything." Derek laughed, sharp and humorless. "Watch yourself, buddy." He turned back to Mia, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. "If you want to avoid trouble, just come with me for a minute. We'll handle the paperwork by my truck." Mia hesitated.
She glanced at Lily, then at Ethan, then back at Derek. Uncertainty pulled at her. She worked hard. She avoided conflict. People like Derek counted on that. Ranger stepped forward, just one pace. His body blocked the space between Derek and Mia without touching either of them. His head stayed level, his eyes locked on Derek's hands. Derek stopped. The lot went quiet, except for the faint hiss of rain. Ethan felt the old instincts wake fully now, the ones that cataloged movement, distance, intent. Derek had changed targets because he thought he'd found an easier one. He was wrong. "You should leave," Ethan said. Derek's jaw tightened. He took a step toward Ethan, then another. He reached out and shoved Ethan's shoulder, testing the limp, expecting imbalance. What he got instead was resistance. Ethan didn't fall. He didn't even stagger. He shifted his weight, grounded through his good leg, and Ranger reacted instantly. The dog lunged forward just enough to cut Derek off, chest colliding with Derek's thigh. It wasn't an attack. It was a barrier. Derek slipped on the thin ice near the curb. His foot slid out, and he went down hard, back slamming into the steel bumper of his own tow truck. The sound echoed. Derek gasped, the air knocked clean out of him. Rage flooded his face. "You think you're tough," Derek snarled, scrambling to his feet. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small canister, dark and cylindrical. Mia sucked in a breath. Lily whimpered and buried her face against her mother's side. Ethan moved. He slapped Derek's wrist aside as the canister sprayed. The stream veered, bursting back into Derek's face in a cloud of stinging mist. Derek screamed, hands flying to his eyes, stumbling blind. Ethan didn't chase him. He didn't need to. He stepped in front of Mia and Lily, spreading his stance. Ranger pressed solidly against his leg like a shield. Ethan raised his phone and hit call. Derek staggered toward his truck, coughing, cursing, panic replacing fury. He fumbled for the door handle, desperate to escape. Ranger turned his head sharply toward the back of the tow truck. His body stiffened. Ethan followed the dog's gaze and heard it too. A faint sound. A knock. From inside the truck. The sound no one meant to hear. The mist thickened into a damp fog, swallowing the edges of the parking lot. Cold crept up from the asphalt, quiet and patient, as if the ground itself was listening. Ethan Cole didn't move at first. The red and black flannel lay heavy against his chest, rain darkened now, the fabric clinging in a way that reminded him of other nights when waiting mattered more than action. Ranger stood rigid at his side, the black harness tight across broad shoulders. Service dog, do not pet, caught a passing beam of light and flashed white. The sound came again. A knock. Soft, uneven. Not metal against metal. Not the careless noise of loose cargo. Human. Ethan felt the shift inside his chest before his mind fully named it. This was the moment that separated inconvenience from something worse. This was the line predators never expected witnesses to hear.
Ranger turned his head toward the rear of the tow truck, ears forward, breath shallow. The dog did not bark. He didn't growl. He waited. Derek Shaw stumbled against the driver's door, one hand still clawing at his burning eyes. Panic had taken the place of rage. He yanked the handle, missed, cursed, and finally got it open. "Stay back!" Derek shouted hoarsely, voice breaking. "I'm leaving." Ethan stepped forward instead. "Open the back," Ethan said. Derek froze halfway into the cab. His shoulders went stiff. Slowly he turned. "There's nothing back there," Derek snapped. "You've done enough. You want trouble, you're about to get it." Mia Parker stood a few steps behind Ethan, Lily pressed tight against her side. Mia's face had gone pale, eyes fixed on the tow truck. She had stopped shaking, replaced by a stillness that came when fear settled deep. "What's that noise?" Mia asked quietly. Ethan didn't answer her yet. His eyes stayed on Derek. "Open it," Ethan repeated. Derek laughed, high and thin. "You're not a cop." "No," Ethan said. "I'm worse for you right now." Derek lunged. It was clumsy, desperate. He tried to shove past Ethan, to break free and get the truck moving. Ethan caught him mid-step, pivoting on his good leg, using Derek's momentum instead of fighting it. Derek went down hard, breath knocked loose again. He scrambled, reaching for anything. Ethan was already on him, pressing Derek's arm behind his back, controlling the fall without striking. Ranger hovered close, eyes never leaving Derek's hands. Ethan pulled a pair of heavy-duty zip ties from his jacket pocket. He carried them the way some men carried keys. Derek laughed again, but this time it was cracked with fear. "You don't know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing," Ethan said. He cinched the ties tight around Derek's wrists, binding them behind his back. Derek sagged, beaten not by force, but by certainty. Ethan stood and turned toward the back of the tow truck. The knock came again, louder this time. Mia gasped. Lily whimpered softly, fingers gripping the hem of her mother's coat. Ethan walked to the rear of the truck, every step measured. His limp was more visible now, the cold aggravating the old injury, but he didn't slow. He placed his hand on the metal latch. "Hey," he said, keeping his voice calm. "If you can hear me, knock again." 3 knocks answered. Ranger let out a low sound, almost a whine, muscles trembling with held energy. Ethan pulled the latch. The door creaked upward, hinges protesting. Cold air rushed inside, carrying the smell of oil, damp metal, and fear. A boy sat hunched in the corner. He couldn't have been more than 12. His hair was dark and matted with sweat. His jacket was thin, barely more than a windbreaker, and his hands were bound loosely in front of him with rope that looked old and reused. His lips were tinged blue. His eyes were wide, tracking every movement like a trapped animal's. When the light hit his face, he flinched. "It's okay," Ethan said immediately. He lowered himself slightly, careful not to loom. "You're safe now." The boy swallowed hard. "He said I had to be quiet." Mia covered her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks without sound. Ethan felt something twist in his chest. Rage, yes, but also a deeper ache. This was the cost that never showed up on paper. "How long have you been in here?" Ethan asked. "Since yesterday," the boy whispered. He said someone would come." Derek thrashed weakly on the ground behind them. "He's lying," Derek yelled. "I found him like that." Ranger snapped his head around, teeth flashing in a single sharp bark. Derek fell silent. Ethan pulled off his jacket and draped it around the boy's shoulders.
He guided him carefully out of the truck, keeping his own body between the boy and Derek. Mia stepped forward instinctively, kneeling to wrap her arms around the boy without squeezing.
Lily watched, eyes huge, understanding more than anyone wanted her to. Sirens cut through the fog. Blue and red lights painted the lot in harsh color as a patrol car slid to a stop. Another followed close behind. Officer Ben Harris stepped out first. He was in his mid-40s, broad-faced, with tired eyes that missed nothing. He took in the scene in seconds. The bound man, the open truck, the child wrapped in a stranger's jacket. "What do we have?" Harris asked calmly. Ethan met his gaze. "A predator who chose the wrong night." Harris nodded once and signaled to his partner. Derek was hauled to his feet, protests ignored. Paramedics arrived moments later, wrapping the boy in a thermal blanket, checking his vitals. The boy never took his eyes off Ranger until he was led away. As Derek was shoved into the back of a cruiser, his head dropped. The instant regret had arrived, complete and final. Ethan leaned against his truck, exhaustion settling into his bones. Ranger pressed close, solid and warm. Some nights the world whispered its secrets, and sometimes if you listened, you could stop them from becoming someone else's tragedy. When silence breaks. Open dawn crept over Pittsburgh in thin gray layers. The rain had stopped, leaving the city damp and raw, as if the night had been peeled away rather than ended. Ethan Cole stood near his truck while the parking lot slowly returned to something that resembled normal. The red and black flannel was wrinkled now, darkened at the cuffs, but still unmistakably his. Ranger sat close at his left side, posture alert yet calm, the black harness steady against his chest. Service dog, do not pet, caught the early light like a quiet command. Sirens had faded, flashing lights were gone. What remained was aftermath. Officer Ben Harris moved with practiced efficiency, speaking to his partner, then to paramedics, then to Ethan. Harris was a man who carried years on his shoulders without letting them bend him. His voice was even, his eyes direct. "You did the right thing," Harris said. "We've been looking for him. Didn't have enough to hold him until tonight." Ethan nodded once. Praise didn't land where it used to. He watched as the boy was guided into the ambulance, wrapped in blankets that swallowed his small frame. The boy looked back once, eyes searching. Ranger met his gaze. The boy's shoulders eased, just a fraction. Mia Parker stood a few feet away, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her coat hung open, forgotten. She looked older than she had an hour ago. Not broken, but altered. Lily clung to her side, unusually quiet, eyes following everything with a seriousness that didn't belong to 9-year-olds. Mia approached Ethan slowly. "I don't know what would have happened," she said. Her voice shook, but she kept going. "If you hadn't been here." Ethan shifted his weight, the old ache in his left leg pulsing as the cold seeped deeper. "You listened," he said. "That matters." Mia shook her head. "I almost didn't." That truth settled between them. How close ordinary people came to disaster without ever seeing the edge. Officer Harris returned, holding a small notebook. "We'll need statements. Later, if that's all right." Ethan agreed. He always did. He never ran from paper trails. They mattered. They kept monsters from slipping back into cracks. Derek Shaw was driven away in silence. No last speech, no grand collapse. Just a man staring at the floor of a patrol car, realizing that every shortcut he'd ever taken had led here.
Instant regret rarely arrived with drama. More often, it arrived with handcuffs and cold clarity. As the lot emptied, the city breathed again. Ethan sat on the edge of his truck bed, one hand resting on the metal for balance. Ranger leaned into his leg, a familiar weight that grounded him. The dog's breathing was slow now, steady. The adrenaline faded. What replaced it was heavier. Ethan watched the sky lighten and felt the old memories stir. Other nights, other vehicles, other hidden spaces where people waited and hoped someone would hear them.
He had learned long ago that silence could be protective or lethal. The difference was attention. Ranger had paid attention. Officer Harris finished up with the paramedics and returned one last time. "The kid's name is Thomas," he said. "Runaway. Been missing 3 days. Family's on the way." Ethan closed his eyes briefly. 3 days was an eternity when you were 12. "You want to head home," Harris added. "We've got it from here." Ethan stood carefully. His limp was more pronounced now, fatigue pulling at old damage. He didn't hide it. He never had. Mia and Lily approached again. Lily stepped forward first, curious, overcoming fear. She stopped in front of Ranger and read the harness out loud, softly. "Service dog. Do not pet." She looked up at Ethan. "He saved people." "Yes," Ethan said. "He did." Lily nodded, satisfied. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She held it out. "It's a dog," Lily said. "I draw when I'm scared." Ethan took the paper. It showed a big dog standing in front of smaller shapes. Crooked lines, bold colors. Confirmed truth. "Thank you," Ethan said. Mia touched Lily's shoulder. "Say goodbye." Lily waved at Ranger. Ranger tilted his head once, ears twitching. When they left, the lot felt emptier than it had before the night began. Ethan drove home slowly, careful on the slick streets. Ranger rested his head on the seat edge, eyes half-lidded but aware. The city passed by in steel and stone and water. At home, Ethan fed Ranger, then iced his knee. He sat at the kitchen table long after the house went quiet, the drawing spread in front of him. He thought about how easily things could have gone another way. How often evil counted on speed and noise and pressure, and how sometimes the smallest pause changed everything. Ranger rose and came to him, resting his head against Ethan's thigh. Ethan placed his hand on the dog's neck, fingers sinking into familiar fur. "Good work," Ethan murmured. Outside, the city moved on. Inside, something had been set right, at least for now. Not because of strength, not because of force, but because someone listened when silence asked to be heard. The quiet that remains. Morning arrived clear and sharp, the kind of cold that made every sound feel honest. Frost traced the edges of parked cars, and the city moved slower, as if respecting what had happened before dawn. Ethan Cole woke before his alarm. He sat on the edge of the bed, the red and black flannel already on, buttoned without thought. Habit was a form of peace. His left leg complained when he stood, a dull reminder that some things healed into permanence. He breathed through it, steady, the way he had learned long ago. Ranger waited by the door. The German shepherd's black and tan coat caught the early light, clean and calm. The black harness rested across his shoulders, the white letters clear and unmissable. Service dog. Do not pet. Ranger did not pace. He did not whine. He watched Ethan with the patient certainty of a partner who knew the work was not finished, only quieter. They stepped outside together. The street smelled of cold stone and old leaves. Ethan locked the door, checked it once more, then headed toward the truck. The city felt unchanged, which meant it was changed in the way that mattered. People went on because someone else had stopped something from going wrong. At a red light near the river, Ethan's phone buzzed. Officer Ben Harris. "They found more," Harris said without preamble. His voice was calm, but heavier than before. "Fake signs, storage units, complaints going back months. Your report cracked it open." Ethan closed his eyes briefly. "The kid." "He's with family," Harris said. "Shaken, alive. That part matters." "It does," Ethan said. Harris hesitated. "You could have walked away last night." "So could he," Ethan replied. The call ended. Ethan drove on. He parked near a small diner that faced the water. It was nothing special. Vinyl booths, coffee that tasted like memory. He and Ranger took a corner table. Ranger lay at Ethan's feet, chin on paws, eyes half open. Ethan wrapped his hands around the mug and let the heat settle into his palms. He thought about Derek Shaw, sitting somewhere cold and fluorescent, finally understanding the cost of shortcuts. Instant regret did not teach mercy. It taught truth. The door chimed. Mia Parker stepped inside with Lily at her side. Mia looked different in daylight, less worn, still cautious, but steadier. She wore a simple coat, hair pulled back neatly, posture straighter than the night before. Lily spotted Ranger and smiled, then remembered herself. She read the harness again, silently this time, and nodded as if sealing a promise. Mia approached Ethan's table. "We didn't know if you'd be here," she said. Ethan gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit." They did. Mia ordered coffee. Lily ordered pancakes and colored with the same blue backpack open at her feet. She glanced up at Ethan from time to time, curious but respectful. "I keep thinking about how close it was," Mia said quietly. "How normal everything felt until it didn't." Ethan nodded. "That's usually how it works." Mia looked down at her hands. "I almost went with him. I tell myself I wouldn't have, but I almost did." "That doesn't mean you failed," Ethan said. "It means you noticed in time." Lily slid a folded paper across the table. Another drawing. This one showed a bridge, a small figure, and a dog standing between shadows and light. "He stands like a wall," Lily said. Ethan swallowed. "He does." Ranger lifted his head and thumped his tail once, soft and controlled. They talked a little longer, about nothing important, about school, about the river, about how cold Pittsburgh stayed even when the sun tried. When they left, the diner felt fuller than it had a moment before. Ethan paid and stood, the familiar pull in his leg reminding him to move carefully. Outside, Ranger matched his pace without being asked. They walked along the river path for a while. The water moved steadily, carrying everything forward without asking permission. Ethan stopped at the railing and looked out. He thought about silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of attention. The kind that noticed small things. A knock where there shouldn't be one. A pause that asked to be honored. Ranger pressed his shoulder lightly against Ethan's thigh. "I know," Ethan said. They headed back to the truck. The city went on around them, unaware and protected all at once. Somewhere, a boy was warm. Somewhere, a woman slept easier. Somewhere, a man learned that the wrong choice could follow him home. Ethan started the engine. Ranger settled in. They drove on, not looking for trouble, not chasing redemption. Just listening. Because sometimes, justice didn't arrive with noise. Sometimes, it arrived the moment someone chose to pay attention. Sometimes miracles do not arrive with thunder or light. Sometimes they come as a quiet warning, a pause that saves a life, a voice we choose to listen to instead of ignore. Faith often works that way, not as spectacle, but as guidance placed gently in our path. Many call it instinct, others call it timing. Some call it luck. But for those who believe, it is the hand of God working through ordinary moments. In daily life, we rush, we push forward, we silence doubts. Yet this story reminds us that God often speaks in stillness, through conscience, through compassion, through those placed beside us to protect and guide us. When we slow down and listen, we give miracles room to happen. If this story touched you, share it with someone who may need hope today. Leave a comment and tell us what you believe saved the day. Subscribe to the channel for more stories of faith, justice, and quiet miracles. May God bless you, protect you, and guide your steps.